My name is Clara May Ellison, and I'm 78 years old. I've lived my whole life in Dyersburg, Tennessee, in a house my late husband, James, built with his own two hands. I was a schoolteacher for 42 years, raised a son all by myself after James passed, and believed, truly believed, that love, patience, and faith would always be enough. I gave everything I had to my boy, Caleb, and when he married Fiona, I opened my heart to her too. She never really opened hers back. The morning it happened, I was wearing my Sunday coat, the navy blue wool one I only pull out for special occasions. Caleb told me we were flying to Florida, that they'd booked a special getaway for me after my hip replacement. "You deserve a break, Ma," he said. I believed him. We arrived at Nashville International Airport, and they walked me to the check-in counter. I still remember how cold Fiona's goodbye hug felt, how she kept checking her phone. Caleb kissed me on the forehead like I was a dog being sent off to a kennel. Then they said they needed to step away to sort a parking issue. They never came back. Minutes turned to hours. People stared. The woman at the counter gently told me, "Ma'am, you don't have a reservation. There's no flight in your name." I checked my purse. No wallet. No phone. Just a half-used tissue, my reading glasses, and a peppermint I'd grabbed from the car cup holder. It began to rain as I stepped outside. A soft drizzle at first, then thunder. I stood under the airport awning, soaked in disbelief. How could my own son, my Caleb, do this to me? That night, I sat in a corner of the terminal, shivering, too proud to cry in front of strangers. I kept thinking it was a mistake, that maybe there had been a car accident, that they'd come back, that my boy still had a heart. But deep down I knew they hadn't left me on accident. They had abandoned me, and I had nowhere to go. Or so I thought. Cliffhanger. As I sat on that cold airport bench, a stranger's shadow fell across me. A woman in a red coat. "Mrs. Ellison?" she asked softly. "Do you remember me?" "Mrs. Ellison?" The voice was soft, familiar. I looked up, squinting through the blurry lenses of my glasses, rainwater streaking my cheeks like tears I refused to shed. A young woman stood before me, soaked but smiling gently, her red coat buttoned tight, a suitcase at her side. "It's me, Eliza Cartwright. 3rd grade. You taught me math and how to spell Mississippi with that silly song you made up." At first, my mind struggled to place her face. The years had changed her, just like they'd changed me. But that name, Eliza Cartwright, lit a candle in my memory. She had been the shy girl who stuttered when she read out loud. The one I'd let stay after class to practice in private until she gained confidence. "Eliza," I whispered, my voice catching in my throat. "You still remember me?" She laughed. "Remember you? I became a teacher because of you." That was the moment the dam broke. I didn't cry out loud. Just sat there with tears running hot down my face, mixing with the rainwater that had soaked my clothes. Someone remembered me. Someone still cared. Eliza sat beside me, her coat shielding both of us. "Why are you here, all alone?" I wanted to lie. To protect Caleb. To make up some excuse that didn't sound so pathetic. But the words came tumbling out before I could stop them. My son and his wife, they brought me here, said they booked a vacation for me. But they didn't. They left. I don't have my wallet. Or a phone. I think they planned this. She went quiet, then placed her hand over mine. "Come with me. I'm not letting you sleep in this airport." By midnight, I was wrapped in a blanket in Eliza's guest room, in her small but warm home just outside Nashville. Her husband, Charlie, was kind and quiet. They had 2 boys, twins, who peeked in shyly before bed and called me ma'am like it was the 1950s. That night, I barely slept. Not because of a discomfort, but because the ache in my heart wouldn't let me rest. My mind kept replaying Caleb's words, his smile, the kiss on my forehead, the betrayal. I kept thinking, what did I do wrong? How did my baby boy become this man? But the next morning, I remembered something else. I raised Caleb. I taught him better than this. So, if he had changed, someone else helped him become that way. Cliffhanger. Eliza handed me her iPad the next morning. "You need to see this," she said. And what I saw made my blood run cold. Fiona was selling my house. My hand trembled as I held the iPad. There it was, in full color. My house. My James house. Listed online under the title, Charming Renovation Opportunity, Motivated Seller, Move Fast. Fiona's name was on the listing. Not mine. Not Caleb's. Just hers. They even posted pictures of my bedroom, my rocking chair, my quilts folded neatly in the corner. They'd taken photos while I was recovering from surgery. Smiling, selling, pretending they owned something they hadn't earned. Eliza, how? I asked, voice barely a whisper. She sat down beside me, laptop in hand. I'm not just a teacher. I got into real estate a few years ago, helped Charlie's folks sell their property. I know what this is. Fiona didn't just list it. She used a power of attorney. She forged it, Clara. That hit like a slap. I had trusted Caleb with everything. Years ago, I'd signed some papers after James died. Caleb said it would make things easier, just in case of emergency. I thought it was safe. I never imagined. I need a lawyer, I muttered. But where would I get the money? I had nothing. No phone. No ID. No checking account access. Everything was still back home, if it hadn't already been thrown out. Eliza took a breath. You're staying here as long as you need. We'll get everything back. I know a guy, he's a lawyer, small town, but smart and ruthless. He owes me a favor. I wanted to protest, to tell her she didn't owe me anything, but I was too tired, too broken. So I nodded. That afternoon, Eliza's friend, Darnell Cooper, came by. He wore a wrinkled suit and had a southern drawl that felt like home. After hearing everything, he looked at me and said, Well, ma'am, if what you're saying is true, that's elder abuse, fraud, and illegal property transfer. If they sold that house, they're in a whole heap of trouble. But they haven't yet, Eliza said. It's still active. They're waiting on an offer. Darnell nodded. Good. Let's make one. That caught me off guard. An offer? From who? He smiled. From you. I didn't understand. Not at first. But Eliza and Darnell had a plan, a brilliant, sneaky, beautiful plan. We weren't just going to stop the sale. We were going to take everything back and make sure they knew I wasn't weak. But first, I had to recover, regain my strength, because this time, I wasn't just surviving. I was preparing. Cliffhanger. That night, I sat in Eliza's kitchen writing a letter. Not to Caleb, not to Fiona, but to James. Dear James, I wrote. They think they buried me. But you remember what we always said about flowers and dirt. There it was, clear as the sunrise over the Smoky Mountains. My home. Listed on some fancy real estate website with flashy words. Vintage charm, hardwood floors, newly cleared for sale by owner. Serious inquiries only. I clicked through the pictures with trembling hands. My sewing basket was still in the corner. The portrait of James above the mantel. Even my birthday calendar, with every grandchild's name written in my handwriting, was still hanging by the kitchen door. How could she do this? Eliza, I said quietly, my name's not on that listing. She nodded, eyes narrowing. I checked the title. 3 years ago, the deed was transferred into Fiona's name as a gift. My breath caught. That's impossible. I never signed it over. Eliza stood and reached for her laptop. You might not have, but someone forged your name. And it's dated the week you were in the hospital after your second fall. I couldn't speak. I remembered that week vividly. I was in and out of consciousness, hooked up to tubes and machines, and Caleb had brought me soup one evening. I thought it was kind. Now, I wasn't so sure. Darnell, the lawyer, came back later that day. He brought copies of legal documents retrieved from the county registrar's office. Signatures. Dates. Notarizations. All fake. This is a textbook case of elder financial exploitation, he said, tapping the forged signature with a pen. It won't hold up in court, but we need to act fast before the sale closes. My stomach twisted. I wasn't just fighting for my home anymore. I was fighting for my name, my dignity, my right to exist. What can we do? I asked. I have no ID, no phone, no bank card. I can't even prove who I am. Darnell smiled. Well, that's where you're wrong. You were a schoolteacher for over 4 decades. You paid taxes. You've got records, retirement papers, pension accounts. We can rebuild your identity. And once we do, he looked me in the eyes. We take them down. Legally. Quietly. Completely. That night, Eliza and I began the process. Phone calls. Emails. Copies of my old driver's license she found in a school yearbook archive. A friend at the local library faxed my teacher ID records. Each document was a brick, rebuilding my life, one memory at a time. As we worked, she asked me softly, "Do you want revenge?" I paused. Thought about it. The pain. The betrayal. The weight of knowing I had loved my son so deeply and still, he left me like a forgotten suitcase. No, I said finally. I don't want revenge. I want peace. But if peace comes at the price of justice, then justice it is. Cliffhanger. A week later, Eliza burst through the front door, holding an envelope. It's from Fiona, she gasped.
She knows you're alive.
And she's threatening to sue. Eliza dropped the envelope on the kitchen table like it was a rattlesnake. It came by courier. No return address, just Fiona's name scribbled on the back. And look, she held up the document inside. It was a cease and desist letter. Fancy legal words and all. To Clara May Ellison, any interference with the pending sale of 191 Oakwood Lane will be considered harassment and trespassing on private property. Further actions may result in legal charges. I stared at the paper.
Cold.
Clinical. No, dear Mom. Just threats. She's scared, Darnell said calmly as he read over it. That's all this is. A scare tactic. A desperate one. He tossed it aside like it was trash. She knows we're coming for the truth. But it still hit me deep. This wasn't some legal squabble over land. This was my son and his wife trying to erase me. To make it look like I had given up everything, when all I'd done was love too deeply and trust too much. And then, I remembered something. Eliza, I said suddenly, do you still have that recording app on your phone? The one you use to practice lessons? Sure, she said.
Why?
Because I just remembered something. Back when Caleb brought me soup in the hospital, I had been barely conscious. He'd said, "Just sign this, Ma. It's insurance stuff. For emergencies." I remembered scrawling something on a clipboard, but I never read what it was. I bet they still have the original. And if I can describe the moment on record, exactly how it happened, we can show it wasn't informed consent. Darnell nodded. Perfect. We'll build an affidavit around it. Start digging into the hospital's visitor logs, security footage, and nurse notes. If they were reckless, which they probably were, we'll prove it. But there was another detail gnawing at my heart. Caleb hadn't just changed overnight. Fiona had always been quiet.
Polished.
Polite in front of others, but cold underneath. And then it hit me. The phone calls. The ones Caleb used to answer in the garage. The way he stopped visiting after he married her. The way Fiona once said, "You're lucky we let you stay, Clara. Most people your age are in homes by now." She hadn't married into my family. She'd taken it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because of fire. I sat down with a blank notebook and began writing. Not a letter this time. Not to James. But a speech. Because we weren't just going to stop the sale. We were going to crash the open house. Cliffhanger. The following Saturday, Eliza pulled into the driveway at my house. There were cars lined up the block. Balloons. A real estate banner. Fiona stood at the porch, laughing with a potential buyer. She didn't see me. Not yet. The sun hung high that Saturday afternoon, casting long shadows across the street where my life used to live. Eliza parked 3 houses down. "You sure you're ready for this?" she asked. I nodded, my hand steady in my lap. I wore my church dress. The one James always said made me look like I ran the whole town. I didn't wear it for show, I wore it for war. Today, I said, I go home. We stepped out of the car just as a line of curious neighbors and hopeful buyers shuffled up the driveway. Colorful balloons fluttered around the mailbox. Music played faintly from speakers near the porch. Fiona stood near the front door, all teeth and lies. "Welcome. Let me know if you have any questions about the property," she chirped. The property. She never once said home. As I approached the porch, I saw her glance my way, casually at first. Then a double take. Her smile vanished like a snuffed-out candle. She stepped down, heels clicking. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "You can't be here. This is trespassing." "This is my house," I said, my voice clear as a bell. Buyers nearby turned to look. "You heard her," Eliza said, tapping her phone. "We're recording everything. Say hi to the internet, Fiona." Fiona stiffened. Her eyes darted toward the realtor, an awkward young man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I walked past her, right up those porch steps, and turned to face the crowd. "My name is Clara May Ellison," I said loudly. "I am the rightful owner of this home. I lived here for 52 years. I raised my son here. My late husband built it with his own 2 hands. The woman trying to sell it forged my signature while I was in the hospital. She and my son abandoned me at an airport, without money, without identification, and tried to erase me from my own life." People froze. A woman in the back gasped. A man holding a brochure took a step away from Fiona. "I may be old," I continued, "but I am not invisible. I'm not helpless. And I'm not going to sit by and let anyone steal what I've built." Darnell stepped forward just then, holding a folder. "We've filed an injunction with the county. This property is now part of an active legal investigation. If you buy this house, you're buying a lawsuit." Fiona's mouth flapped open. "You can't do this. You don't have proof." "Yes, we do," Eliza said. "We have hospital logs, forensic handwriting analysis, audio statements, witnesses. And you, Fiona, you left a paper trail long enough to lasso the moon." The crowd began to break apart. One by one, cars pulled away from the curb. Buyers turned their backs on Fiona, walking away with murmured apologies and awkward glances. She stood there, seething, red-faced, as if the world had suddenly stopped working in her favor. I looked her in the eye. "You forgot one thing, Fiona," I said softly. "I taught 3rd grade for 42 years. I've seen every trick, every tantrum, and every lie. You're nothing special." Cliffhanger. As Fiona stormed off, shouting into her phone, I stepped back inside my house for the first time in weeks. But what I found in the living room made my knees go weak. Every family photo, every memory gone. Burned.
Torn.
Replaced. The house was quiet now. No music. No laughing strangers. Just the sound of my shoes on old hardwood floors James had sanded by hand one long summer. The scent was different, too, chemical, cold. Like someone had tried to erase the warmth. I stepped into the living room, and that's when I saw it. The walls.
Bare.
The frames. Empty. Not a single photo of Caleb. Not of James. Not of me. My quilts were gone. The floral curtains I stitched the summer Caleb turned 5, replaced with beige panels from a department store. The bookcase that held James's Bible and my mother's recipe cards, replaced with cheap decor, soulless knickknacks with words like live,
Laugh.
love. It felt like a museum of someone else's life. And then I found the box, shoved into the hallway closet like trash. Inside it, torn photos, burned edges, my wedding album, soaked and warped, my mother's pearl earrings cracked, a note written in Fiona's handwriting. "Put this stuff in the attic or toss it. It smells like the past." I dropped to my knees, not out of weakness, out of grief. They hadn't just tried to steal my home. They tried to erase me from it. Eliza knelt beside me, her arms wrapping around my shoulders like a daughter might. "They can't take your memories," she whispered. But it wasn't enough. Memories fade. Photographs last. Until they don't. For the first time since this nightmare began, I sobbed. The kind of cry that comes from deep in the bones, where every memory lives. Not for the house. Not for the things. For the love I gave, and how it had been thrown away like yesterday's mail. Later that night, I sat in my old bedroom, staring out the window toward the backyard. The swing James built still hung from the oak tree. That gave me strength. Eliza and Darnell were downstairs working on the next legal step, filing a restraining order and petitioning the court to freeze the home's title. But I needed something more. So I made a list. A plan. Not for revenge. For resurrection. This house had raised a family. It had held birthdays, tears, church potlucks, and a million quiet moments in between. And now, it would be mine again, not just in name, but in soul. Cliffhanger. The next morning, a sheriff's cruiser pulled into the driveway. An officer stepped out holding an official document. He tipped his hat. "Ma'am," he said, "your son Caleb just filed a motion to have you declared mentally unfit." The sheriff's boots echoed on the porch as he approached, a solemn look on his weathered face. "Clara May Ellison?" I nodded. He handed me the document. "Your son's petitioning the court to declare you incompetent to manage your affairs. Says you've been unstable, forgetful, unsafe to live alone." I stood there in silence, holding the paper. It shook in my hand, but not from fear. From fury. He wanted to steal my home, erase my name from the deed, sell off my memories. And now he wanted to steal my mind. "Is there a hearing?" I asked calmly. The sheriff nodded. "Next Friday. Probate court. Dyersburg County." Then his voice softened. "Ma'am, for what it's worth, I've known of you since I was a boy. You taught my niece, Maddie. This feels wrong." It was wrong, but it was also his last move. Caleb was throwing everything he had to stop me from reclaiming my life. Darnell moved fast. By Monday, he had filed a counterpetition, gathered statements from doctors who had seen me after the incident, and even had the school superintendent draft a letter testifying to my clarity and intellect. "The sharpest teacher in the district," he wrote. Eliza helped me prepare a testimony. We practiced every night at the kitchen table. I answered mock questions, recited my birth date, retirement details, and even the names of every student in my final class. My memory wasn't fading. It was just waiting to be called upon. And then Friday came. The courtroom was small, but packed. Fiona wore her best pearls. Caleb sat beside her, arms crossed, looking everywhere but at me. I walked in on my own, no walker, no cane, no fear. When the judge called my name, I rose. My voice didn't shake. "My name is Clara May Ellison. I was born in 1947. I taught for 42 years. I raised one son alone. I paid off my house, paid my taxes, and lived with kindness. What I didn't do was sign away my life." I paused. "My son believes I'm weak because I'm old. But age is not the absence of strength, it's proof of survival. I've lived through loss, war, widowhood, and betrayal. And I am still standing." When I finished, the judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Ellison," she said, "you are of sound mind. And by the evidence presented, it's clear this motion was made in bad faith." She turned to Caleb and Fiona. "Consider this a warning. You are one step away from criminal charges. And you will not intimidate this woman again." Fiona gasped. Caleb turned pale. "And me?" I walked out of that courtroom taller than I'd felt in years. Epilogue, 2 months later. I sit on my porch swing now, coffee in hand. The quilts are back. The curtains, stitched by me, hang with pride. The deed is in my name. Fiona and Caleb lost their legal rights to my property and their reputation in town. Well, Tennessee folks don't forget. Eliza visits often. Her twins call me Granny May. She even started a community group for elderly rights. She says I inspired it. And me? I still keep the court letter Caleb filed in a drawer. Not out of bitterness, but as a reminder that no matter how dark it gets, you don't bury women like me. You plant us, and we rise.